first, Lori couldn't decide what kind of tea she wanted. The chamomile, which used to be her favorite for lazy evenings at home, now reminded her too much of Carl, who once said, in happier times, that he liked chamomile. But she felt she must now, at all costs, keep her mind off Carl. His possessiveness was suffocating, and if she thought about him too much, her asthma started acting up again. So chamomile was out of the question.
Meanwhile, Advanced Sergeant Carl Harris, leader of the attack squadron now in orbit over Skylon 4, had more important things to think about than the neuroses of an airheaded bimbo named Lori with whom he had spent one sweaty night over a year ago. A.S. Harris to Geostation 17, he said into his transgalactic communicator. Polar orbit established, no signs of resistance so far. But before he could sign off, a bluish particle beam flashed out of nowhere and blasted a hole through his ship's cargo bay. The jolt from the direct hit sent him flying out of his seat and across the cockpit.
He bumped his head and died almost immediately, but not before he felt one last pang of regret for physically brutalizing the one woman who had ever had feelings for him. Soon afterwards, Earth stopped its pointless hostilities towards the peaceful farmers of Skylon 4. Congress passes law permanently abolishing war and space travel, Lori read in her newspaper one morning. The news simultaneously excited her and bored her. She stared out the window, dreaming of her youth, when the days had passed unhurriedly and carefree, with no newspapers to read, no television to distract her from her sense of innocent wonder at all the beautiful things around her. Why must one lose one's innocence to become a woman? She pondered wistfully.
Little did she know, but she had less than 10 seconds to live. Thousands of miles above the city, the Udurian mothership launched the first of its lithium fusion missiles. The dim-witted, wimpy peaceniks who had pushed the unilateral aerospace disarmament treaty through Congress had left Earth a defenseless target for the hostile alien empires who were determined to destroy the human race. Within 2 hours after the passage of the treaty, the Anurian ships were on course for Earth, carrying enough firepower to pulverize the entire planet. With no one to stop them, they swiftly initiated their diabolical plan. The lithium fusion missile entered the atmosphere unimpeded. The president, in his top-secret mobile submarine headquarters on the ocean floor off the coast of Guam, felt the inconceivably massive explosion which vaporized Lori and over 85 million other Americans. The president slammed his fist on the conference table. "We cannot allow this! I'm going to veto that treaty! Let's blow them out of the sky!"
This is absurd. I refuse to continue this mockery of literature. My writing partner is a violent, chauvinistic, semi-literate adolescent.
Yeah? Well, you're a self-centered, tedious neurotic who attempts at writing are the literary equivalent of Valium.
You total jerk!
Stupid moron! Hello everyone, this is Max and Kay with Fiction Rant to talk with you all about how to not do a sequel trilogy to a beloved franchise. I'm talking, of course, about the Star Wars sequel trilogy, episodes 7, 8, and 9. Also, I have a Coffee link and a Fourth Wall merch store link in the description if you want to support the channel. Alright, some of you might have heard of the little tandem writing exercise at the beginning of this video as performed by myself and my lovely wife. Clearly, it's a pair of students who were supposed to be collaborating on a story but ended up trying to tell a pair of completely different stories at the same time and ended up just bickering in the end while actively sabotaging one another. It's possible the story is totally made up, but it illustrates my point, so we'll go with it. That's what happened with the sequel trilogy. We started with The Force Awakens, co-written and directed by J.J. Abrams. He'd just come off doing the 2008 Star Trek movie, which was a smashing success at the box office, so the studio did what the studios do, and gave him another franchise noted for its spectacle to helm. So he did what JJ does, and made a movie full of explosions and intriguing plot threads and mysteries and fun characters. Unfortunately, what he didn't do was go in with an actual plan. This meant that we got all sorts of little mysteries to keep all the fans engaged and theorizing. Who are Rey's parents? Is Finn Force sensitive? What could possibly have driven Luke to go into hiding? Who's Snoke? Where did this First Order come from? What has the New Republic been up to since the Return of the Jedi? All really compelling questions, and there was a lot of debate online about what was going on. So, of course, JJ himself had no actual answers to those in mind, or at least none that were set in stone, which was a problem because along came the director for The Last Jedi, Rian Johnson. Rian gets a lot of fan anger directed at him for the work he did in basically trying to burn the Star Wars franchise to the ground, and to be fair, probably 80% of that is totally deserved. Heck, he even came out and said, quote, "I'll be worried if everybody across the board was like, yeah, it was a good movie. It's much more exciting to me when you get a group of people who are coming up to you who are really excited about it, and then there are other people who are literally saying it's the worst movie I've ever seen. Having those two extremes is the mark of the type of movie I want to make. Translation, he set out to make something divisive. And at that, he totally succeeded. There are definitely people out there who enjoyed The Last Jedi, but from what I've seen, there really aren't that many long-term Star Wars fans among them. This actually seems to be a symptom of a lot of franchise writing these days. I've made no secret of the fact that I can't stand Star Trek Discovery, or STD, and that it lost me within a few episodes, despite me trying really hard to push through the inexcusably awful pilot. Many of our favorite franchises are being written to appeal to non-fans, and by doing so, they've alienated their core fan base. I'm sure that somebody with control over boatloads of money thinks this is a great strategy. I tend to think that that's how you kill the golden goose, and the last decade would seem to support my theory. Fortunately, for all the Trek fans out there, an episode of the still canon Star Trek Lower Decks, which I do actually enjoy as a love letter to all the series, despite it basically being Family Guy, but Star Trek. They included some transporter accident that had them seeing a bunch of alternate universes, and among the things that we saw was an STD Klingon, which to me, and many others, means that while STD might be canon, it's not prime timeline canon, so we can ignore everything that happened in that series. Yay! The same cannot be said for Star Wars, unfortunately. Barring some introduction of time travel or other mechanism for just retconning the entire series and the sequels, we're basically stuck with them and their established canon. Incidentally, this is why I actually reference them as canon in other videos, despite the complaints of many of my commenters. Basically, Star Wars canons works like this. If it's on cinema screen, it's canon. Period. If it's on TV screen, like Clone Wars, it's definitely canon, but any inconsistencies defer to the movies. If it's a manual or book, take everything you see with a massive grain of salt, even if George Lucas himself wrote it. Everything in text defers to what you see on screen. So yeah, I'm not happy about it either, but the stupid Holdo maneuver is canon. Sorry. Anyway, back to Rian Johnson. He set out to subvert expectations, and subvert them he did. Who's Rey? Nobody. Is Finn a Jedi? Who? Why did Luke go into hiding? Well, he had a bad dream that made him totally change personality traits away from the guy who was willing to risk his own life and the lives of everyone in the rebellion whose mission he endangered in order to attempt to redeem his father, a serial-killing maniac who had already taken his hand. But yeah, one night he had a bad dream about his nephew, so he contemplated murdering the kid in his sleep and then kind of felt bad about the consequences, and instead of cleaning up his own mess, he just went on to live on an island in the middle of nowhere, leaving a bunch of non-Jedi to try to deal with his mess. Good luck! Yeah, this one is probably about 60% JJ's fault, honestly. He's the one that set up Luke going into hiding, and about 99% of the possible explanations for that don't paint Luke in a very good light. Rian still doesn't get a pass, but I don't think that you can blame him entirely for it. So what about the other questions? Alright, who's Snoke? Doesn't matter. He's dead a couple minutes after we meet him. Well, where did the First Order come from? I don't know. Read a book or something. Well, what has the New Republic been up to? I don't know. Read a book. Also, JJ already blew the entire thing up, so we're just back to the Empire. First Order versus the Rebellion. Resistance. Alright, so that's The Force Awakens and all its dangling plot threads pretty thoroughly set on fire. It's like, okay, we have all these things set up. None of them matter. Cool. Let's watch Rose and Finn ride some dog horsey thingies, and let's watch Princess Leia's Mary Poppins impression. Are you having fun yet? Oh yeah, and also Rey saves the day by utilizing force powers that she trained for exactly no hours to wield. So then we move on to Rise of Skywalker. Oh good, it's back in JJ's hands. Better finish off strong so we can prove all the angry fans wrong and prove that we're geniuses of storytelling. Somehow Palpatine has returned. Yeah, Palpatine. You remember that guy? Yeah, he's back. How is he back? Doesn't matter. But hey, he has some awesome new Star Destroyers that can do the job of a whole Death Star in a tiny, tiny package. So why did the Empire spend the absurd amount of resources and manpower to make 2 Death Stars and later the First Order to make Starkiller Base? But planet go boom boom. Yeah. Again, we have JJ doing what JJ does and giving us a ton of spectacle, but this time he's very clearly pulling said spectacle entirely out of his butt. Nothing had been teased. Nothing makes any sense in the context of the greater story. Nothing is satisfying. Just boom booms and ooh, force lightning. At least for this one, he shows that Rey has been training a bit with Leia, so he can justify giving her access to every power ever conceived of by anyone. Heck, she can even use force lightning accidentally. That thing that only the most practiced and powerful Sith Lords could do in previous shows. Yeah, Rey is just so awesome, she did that and didn't even mean to. All those other guys must suck. None of Rise of Skywalker makes sense. But if you know nothing about Star Wars, it's still pretty dumb, but at least there's pretty colors and explosions. Gotta love making a movie to appeal to non-fans, but requiring said non-fans to not only have watched everything that came before, but also read multiple novels. Okay, whining about the stupidity of the sequels done for now. What happened? A combination of things, of course, happened, but I think much of it basically boils down to two main issues. Number one, they didn't go in with an overarching plan. And number two, they spent more focus on appealing to non-fans than actual fans. And unfortunately, these seem to be the norm for a lot of shows these days. Star Trek Discovery, Star Wars, The Witcher, Wheel of Time, Rings of Power, Halo, Terminator. All of these shows and movies had the potential to be absolutely amazing. They certainly had plenty of rich lore and backstory to draw from, but especially over time, you have Terminator that started out strong and just seems to get worse and worse and worse over the years. They just get caught up in probably the biggest storytelling trap of the last few decades. What they end up doing is they hand over beloved IPs, intellectual properties, to writers who aren't fans of said IPs and really just want to tell their own stories, and then they just chuck ungodly amounts of money at them, so the pressure's on to make everything as spectacular as possible all the time and make everyone as powerful as possible all the time. So the only thing that the stories really lose is consistency and stakes. I mean, I heard an account, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, basically saying that the Halo TV series was never actually written to be a Halo TV series. They had a completely different story, but Halo is a very marketable IP, so they basically just slapped a Halo coat of paint on it and shipped it as that, which means that half of the decisions and plot devices in the show don't make any sense because they were never written in the context of Halo. And going back and trying to retroactively make everything make sense is a huge pain in the butt, so they just didn't bother. And that kind of thing, I think, keeps happening over and over and over again. So combine that with societal pressure for things like, we need to make this as diverse as possible, or we need to make sure that Galadriel in Rings of Power is no longer this amazing leader who is a very formidable and powerful character, but kind of has a soft power where everybody has a lot of respect for her. And if she ever did go to war, then it would be, a force of nature going to war. No, we have to put her in armor and give her a sword and have her showing up everybody else and being like, yes, I am warrior Galadriel, and why are we doing this? I don't know. It's basically a different character, but isn't it cool? But yeah. Who cares if the stories make sense? They're expensive and pretty, so now shut up and give us your money. And of course, if any of the fans actually do speak out about how ridiculous this is, why do we have a warrior Galadriel for a great example? Well, that just means, we're going to call you names and we're going to blame the fans when this fails. We're not going to take any accountability for anything. But, okay. Ranting done. I'm going to get my blood pressure pumped up talking about this. Well, what do you all think? I'm certainly not being exhaustive in my complaints about modern storytelling, and I'm hopeful that things will get better, but I'm still interested in your thoughts. At the very least, feel free to use the comments section as a place to vent your frustration over the destruction of your favorite franchises. Again, I have links to my coffee and merch store in the description if you want to support the channel, and until next time, live long and prosper, and may the Force be with you.